Welcome pilots, my name is Hybrid V and we are back once again to watch your takeoff and landings here in Star Citizen. To be more specific, we're here at Lorville, and even more specific, I'm here in the brand new MPUV T, that is the MPUV tractor variant. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but for right now, let's talk about what I'm actually doing here, especially if you're new to this show. This is where I fly around various starports in Star Citizen, in this case, for example, here, Lorville, and I watch players come and go as they take off and land, and I give them a rating out of 10 for how cinematic their takeoff or landing is. Now, what does that actually mean? In Star Citizen, taking off and landing is no real big deal. As long as you can take off and land without dying and losing your stuff, it's all well and good, right? But what I'm looking for here is for people taking it the extra step. Right? People who are trying to make their takeoff or landings look a bit smoother and more cinematic, like something you'd see out of other sci-fi medium. So that means as they're approaching their landing site, they are smooth and controlled, minimal hesitation, no stuttering, no issues whatsoever. They're using their VTOL engines if their ship has them where applicable, so they're using them like I'm using them here to go into a hover. Of course, you don't actually need them in Star Citizen to actually hover, but they do actually function. They give you more control, and they look cool and much more cinematic, right? As well as right before they touch the pad, they pull their landing gear out. So this is no having landing gear out miles and miles away from the actual landing pad, right? They do it right before they touch down, because if you watch any other sci-fi medium, that's exactly how they land. They don't have their gear out from far away. I know in real life planes do, but we're not flying planes here, folks. And of course, when you're taking off, all same ideas. Smooth controlled motions using VTOL where applicable, and pulling the gear up and taking off in all one smooth motion. Let's find our first customer, shall we? All right, one of the medium hangars are opening up here. Let's see what we've got on deck. Is it someone taking off or is it someone landing? Let's see, can't we find out actually? Looks like we have somebody coming in for landing here. And what have we got? Let me go ahead and widen out the field of view here and see if we can find where our customer is coming from. Back up a little bit as well too. And here we go. First customer of the day, we have what appears to be a Constellation of some description. More specifically, it is a Constellation Aquila with some nice laser cannons on there. Look at those bearing laser cannons. Gear is already down pretty far away. Again, folks, the criteria is that we want people to pull their gear out before they touch down. Now, in this case, this player is landing perfectly fine within the context of just playing the game. But for what we are looking for here on the show is a more cinematic looking landing, and this person is also not using their VTOL fans as well. VTOL fans are indeed functional on the Constellation series as well. They give you a little bit more control in your upwards and downwards vectoring, and it looks like they're keeping things nice and centered. Things are relatively smooth. That looks like it's going to be a nice, beautifully centered landing. Look at that. Gorgeous, nice landing, and nice and buttery smooth. Really solid landing. Now, if they had used their gear right before they touched down and they were using their fans, that would be a phenomenal 10 out of 10 landing. But unfortunately, they are missing those 2 points of criteria there. So I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10. Really beautiful, well controlled and smooth. Right down the money, center right there. It looked really nice. We're just missing those 2 components. So if this pilot looks to be improving their skills, I mean, they're already doing a phenomenal job. All they have to do is just practice their actual gear points where they want to bring their gear down, as well as remembering to use VTOL. Remember, it doesn't cost anything to activate the VTOL, at least, right? It doesn't really change much other than giving you some more control over that flight profile when you're ascending and descending. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Now, what have we got here? We have a Spirit. Folks, you're going to notice the time of day has changed here. Lorville has been absolutely dead, so I even got another ship to fly here. I'll talk about this one in a minute, but for now, let's watch the Spirit come in for landing, because this Spirit here, see, you can see the hesitation here, right? They're just holding their nose up, which is fine, right? Again, in Star Citizen, this all works well and good so long as you don't crash and burn the entire process. It works fine, but for what we are looking for here, folks, is something a little bit more cinematic. I know I'm bringing this up over and over again, but I get comments every single time in my videos of people being like, well, it doesn't really matter X, Y, or Z. As well, it does for my show here, folks, right? We want buttery smooth cinematic landings, or at least we want to see people try to get that and try to provide some insight in how you can try to pull those off yourself as well. You see no VTOL activation on this player here. They are nice and centered though, however, looking very good. Gear is down as well. This is going to be looks like relatively centered here. Looking awesome. Yep. Nice and beautiful. Oh, there they were a little bit slightly right offset and they moved left, though that looks phenomenal. Very, very nice landing there. Of course, no VTOL usage, so I will have to subtract some points from that, of course, as well as there's some hesitation there. So I'm going to give them a solid 8. I could go down to a 7 just because the hesitation was a real big cost factor there. But I did not see the gear, right, because of the way they were angled. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt and just say that's an 8. That's a solid 8 right there, right? Kind of similar to the Constellation we saw earlier, except that Constellation was missing 2 elements. This Spirit was missing their VTOLs as well as taking a lot of hesitation in their landing. But I didn't see the gear, unfortunately, because of that. I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt and just assume, oh my goodness, what do we got here? We have 2 ships landing. This is the first time, folks, we've seen on Watching Your Takeoff and Landings. We have 2 ships coming in tandem. So we're going to have a tandem landing here at Carrack and a C2 coming in. You can see both ships have their gear down a little bit earlier than I'd like here. Carrack is doing a really nice job. C2 is doing a nice job here. It can benefit to be a little bit more lined up, especially the Carrack there. Carrack's a little bit too far nosed in. There you go, Carrack's adjusting. The C2 does not have its VTOLs active, so it doesn't have its little wings on the side, its stubby little wings, you know, tied in a little bit, or tucked in, I should say, a little bit better. Carrack, beautiful centered landing. That looks great. The C2 slightly a little bit backwards in its offset there, although both landings were actually really, really solid. Wonderful, bravo tandem landing there. Both sides doing very, very good. Although I will have to subtract points, at least for the Carrack, I'll subtract points for having their gear down early, right? Which is really, really cool, though everything was nice. And I could give them some points taken for the hesitation a little bit, because originally I'm thinking I probably won't, but I really should. What do we got here? We have a Cutlass coming in for landing here, and this Cutlass is disappearing into the... Oh no, the Cutlass just exploded into Lego pieces! Oh no, goodness, folks, we have a Cutlass that was coming in for landing, and then it just disintegrates into Lego blocks here. Oh, that is unfortunate. I'm assuming this must be server-related issues. You can see the landing gear floating up in space also, by the way. Oh, that is so frustrating. I don't know what happened, folks. It looks like this guy was coming in for landing, and then just out of nowhere just turns into Lego bricks. So I'm assuming something happened. Maybe the server hiccuped or something. And then this player just explodes into pieces. Now I'm seeing the hangar opening up, and the hangar should have closed by now because there's no ship to service at this point. I'm wondering if that's just desynced. Even then, this player looked like they were going at slow enough speeds for them to not explode. So I'm not sure what's going on, but that is really, really sad to see. Because I mean, I'm sure all of you have been in this point, especially when the server hiccups or whatever, and it just explodes on you. It's a very, very frustrating thing when the server just, for some reason, just decides to kill you like that. And I'm assuming that's what's happening here. I can't tell. It just, for some reason, this player just detonated into a bunch of pieces as they were coming into landing. I would like to apologize for this person. I swear, like, it's so sad to see. I hate it because that's such a frustrating thing to happen to anybody, regardless of whether you're just kind of farting around in the game or you're actually doing something serious like cargo trading or whatever. Like, that would just absolutely frustrate the heck out of me. I'm sure it does for that player, and anybody seeing that, I'm sure, could have any type of sympathy for that, because that sucks. That absolutely sucks. I mean, server meshing can't come soon enough to hopefully address these issues with server performance, because server performance has been absolutely abysmal. And yeah, I mean, there's only so much we can do. But anyway, that tragedy aside, back to the C2 and that Carrack, right? Carrack had their gear down way too early, and there was some hesitation coming into the hangar with the nose coming in, and then they were kind of trying to adjust. It looked really, really good, and it was really, really centered, but I would like that to be a lot more smoothed out rather than just kind of being a little bit hesitant. So I will give that Carrack, I'll give him a solid 8 out of 10, right? I think that's another good example of a solid 8 out of 10 landing. Now, that C2, on the other hand, I'm going to give them actually a 7 because there was some hesitation, no VTOL activation, and of course, early gear usage. Now, they were dead centered, sort of, actually. They were kind of a little bit further back, but they were decently centered. But, you know, we have some elements there missing, so I'm going to subtract points. And as you well know, if you've been watching this series this season with Master Modes, I'm going to be a little bit harder trying to critique people's landings, because landing is probably the easiest it's ever been in Star Citizen, as well as just flying in general with Master Modes. So I'm going to be slightly harder in my critique of people as they come and go for how cinematic their landings are. So anyway, I'm in the MPUV personnel transport here, and the reason why I'm just flying it around is I want to show you guys what it looks like when you're in a non-gold standard ship. As you can see, I have barely any cockpit lighting. The ship is incredibly quiet in comparison to the other MPUV T I was in, right? Because the MPUV T is gold standard, so it has its finalized, or should be at least finalized, audio, stuff that we'll see in Squadron 42, as well as in our game here in the persistent universe of Star Citizen. Now, of course, it's going to be in Squadron 42, but it's going to be an NPC ship. I don't think the players necessarily could be flying it around. Maybe they will. Don't know. I doubt it. It's a fighter kind of naval simulator. But you can see how the differences are compared to that ship, especially if you have your audio cranked up a bit there. It's just the ship is just incredibly quiet. So you may be asking yourself, why did CIG gold standard the MPUV-T but not the other MPUVs? The reason why is because they're probably going to be applying... There's a box over there or something. The reason why is because they're probably going to be giving it the Retaliator treatment in the future. They're going to gold standard it, as well as they're going to potentially sell the modules in the back of these ones separately as well. In fact, I'm almost certain they probably will. So if you're an owner, you'll most likely just get the hull as well as the module that you own for it as well. So you can choose to take it on or off, because these modules are actually not permanent to the ship. They are fully detachable. And I'll show you here in a second what that looks like. You can see this module is attached to the underbelly of the actual MPUV. So this again is the personnel module. You would get this separate, and you can attach it at any time, either through some menus potentially, or you could just probably maybe attach it in game. There's the actual attach point right there. Now contrast that with the actual MPUV-T I'm flying now, and you can see a major difference. The cockpit is actually well lit. The audio sounds way better. You can see all the little details in the cockpit with the little clickable buttons up top, as well as you can see a brand new yoke, which looks way better, much more industrial, and just more interesting looking overall. It flies way better, in my opinion, too, than the standard MPUV. I don't know why it's tuned different. It just seems like it is. Probably because the other ones are a lot heavier with those modules, I would assume. Maybe that's how they are tuned. Not entirely certain. Either way, though, very, very neat looking at a gold standard MPUV. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Enough blathering. All right, medium hangar is opening up here. What have we got? I see lights flashing in there, so we have something taking off, and indeed we do. We have an A2 standing by for takeoff. VTOL being used, which is always good to see. Remember, folks, we want to see VTOL while you're taking off too, as well as you're landing. Looking solid there. Where's the gear state right now? The gear appears to be up, which is exactly what we're looking for. This looks like a solid 10 out of 10 takeoff here as they rotate. No, they pull the gear down. No! The throw! Ladies and gentlemen, we have a throw here. No, this person accidentally forgot that they already had their gear already set up properly as they took off, and then they accidentally pulled the gear down as they were stick. Because this is probably their sequence they like to do. They like to pull up, get some altitude, and then gear up and push out. But in this case, they probably had already geared up while they were in the hangar, which is what I saw there. It looks pretty good. And then as they got to a good altitude before they began pushing forward, they ended up hitting the gear button again, thinking that they were pulling their gear up because their muscle memory said otherwise to them, and then they pulled their gear down. Oh no. That was supposed to be a 10 out of 10, but they hesitated. I would normally give it to them, but no. We have to be honest, folks. They did miss that element. There was just a small mistake there. That's a 9 out of 10, though. I will give them a solid 9 out of 10 because that's exactly what we're looking for. They just made that minor mistake. Such a tragedy. I really want... Oh, somebody, I think, just took off over there to the left in that small hangar there. You can see this little cutter. I'm going to fly around here. Is just hovering. There's always people abandoning ships above the spaceports. And it always makes you wonder why people just abandon their ships up here. I'm assuming almost always it's sometimes people like crash or disconnect, and then they just never come back, so their ships just stay up here. This one appears to be damaged, actually. Interesting. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, we've got another medium hangar opening up here. What have we got? We have what appears to be a Carrack on deck for takeoff. You can see the actual gear just came up. That's good. And then they're rotating for some reason. Be careful because that thing is very long. And yep, they're scraping the butt on the pad. You gotta be careful with that, folks. Carrack is, oh goodness, control it, control it. Oh, what is going on here? Wow. And they just scraped their way out of the hangar. I'm assuming that must be server lag because this pilot does not look like they were having really too much trouble. It just kind of like scraped through and then they just took off there. So my assumption here is that the server was probably having a bit of an issue there And that's the reason why we can see them melting through the actual hangar like that. Very awkward. I'm not entirely certain if they actually made contact. I do know their rear made contact because of the direction they were actually rotating in. The backside of that Carrack is very, very long, and if you're not aware of it when you're in the front on that bridge piloting it, it's very easy to bump that butt of that ship into all kinds of stuff in the hangar. So yeah, they did have their gear up, which is exactly what we want to see, right? They were hovering and they were getting ready to take off, but they had that rear impact, and then they had that weird scrape on the way out of the hangar. Now, I'm not entirely certain what that was. I'm assuming that's going to be server lag. Either way, I'm going to give them a solid 7 out of 10. It's the stuff I want to see, but that impact is huge points I got to take away from them. That's unfortunate, but it is what it is, folks, right? All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next customer. All right, another medium hangar opening up here. Lots of big ships coming and going. Of course, people do love to come and go and sell at the business district here at Lorville. And what have we got? Something taking off for landing. It looks like we have something coming in for landing as nothing is on the deck here. What have we got? We have another Hercules coming in for landing. This one appears to be another A2 doing a nose-in approach here, which is perfectly fine. You can see those retro thrusters firing to keep them going as they come in. So that is perfectly fine looking here. It looks like they're going to potentially rotate and adjust their pitch attitude here. No VTOL usage, early gear activation. Actually, there goes the VTOLs. Okay, I like to see that. Very nice VTOL usage, although the gear is still early, so we will subtract points for that. Though this VTOL activation here, very, very, very nice. Also, look how centered they are. Very, very smooth and centered. Very, very nice. Very nice. Look at that. Dead center. Are they gonna butter it? It looks like they are. You can see their lights are on the front of the ship. Yeah, very nice, buttery smooth landing. Very, very good. Everything was pretty much there. The only thing we're missing is that early activation of the gear. We can see a Spirit coming in as well too. You can watch this. But yeah, that A2, I would generally probably give them anywhere between an 8 to a 9 out of 10. The reason why I can go towards an 8 is because there was just some small hesitation as they came in. They could probably definitely pull that off a little bit more smoother, but they're just being a little bit more cautious. And I'll be a little bit more on the cautious side myself, and I'll just say I'll give them a 9 out of 10 because I like everything I saw there. It's just the gear was the big drawback for me there. You can see this Spirit is also being a little bit cautious, lining themselves up, trying to kind of keep things steady here. No VTOL usage. As you can see, those side winglets there are not tucked in, so there's not as much control in their vertical takeoff and landing profile there, so they're not using VTOL. But overall, very nice and smooth, relatively centered, even though it's a little bit 90-degree offset from what it's supposed to be, but that's perfectly fine, right, folks? Very, very cool. Very nice landing there. There's a little bit of hesitation as they're kind of trying to center things, but overall very cool. We did have what appeared to be early gear usage on that Spirit, as well as no VTOL usage. 90-degree offset. What do you think, folks? Do you think I should take points away for that for being 90-degree offset rather than actually being aligned with the actual pad as it's supposed to be technically? You let me know in the comments if you think I should take away points for that. Otherwise, that's just generally going to be, I could probably give them an 8. I would probably give them a 7 generally, but that's a Spirit, folks. You know how hard it can be to land a Spirit currently, at least until we get the improved hangars where we can load cargo and ships, our little personalized hangars, because those are supposed to be slightly bigger. They're going to be making them slightly bigger for the Spirits, more specifically. And yeah, so it can be difficult to land the Spirit as a result, and very tricky because of how tight that fit is. But let me know below if you think I should take points for them being askewed on the pad like that 90-degree offset. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Now there is a box down here, I think, because my radar keeps saying unknown down here. I'm going to use the little tractor beam. This is again the MPUV T, so I get a tractor beam. Oh, it's a grabby hands box. It's a little 1/8 SCU storage box that someone, I guess, just left here. Maybe they crashed or something, so they have like a little personal box they had on their ship. Maybe it's got some food, maybe some ammo or something like that, not entirely certain. I don't have any place to actually store this on this ship because there's no attach points for little grabby hands boxes. Maybe I'll just put it in the hangar that I called here. And maybe I'll just try to dive in there and see if there's anything interesting in that box. Could be empty for all we know. I'll go ahead and just drop it into the hangar and go check it out. Hopefully it's still there by the time I land. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut the cameras here. And I'll be back shortly. All right, brand new day here, folks, and we have a small hangar opening up here. What have we got? We have what appears to be a Nomad on the deck. Gear is already up, looking beautiful. And away they go. One smooth motion. That's what we love to see here, folks. That is a solid 10 out of 10 takeoff. I don't know if you noticed it. Hopefully you did. But they had their gear going up right before they left the hangar, and then they ascended a little bit more, and then they pushed out in a nice smooth motion for a solid 10 out of 10 takeoff. That is exactly what I'm looking for in terms of takeoff, right, folks? It's a lot easier to get those 10 out of 10 takeoffs than it is for those 10 out of 10 landings. So really, anybody should be able to pull it off. And of course, the actual Nomad does not have VTOLs, so that's not anything I was looking for there. I just wanted to see proper gear usage, being very smooth with no hesitation as they left the hangar, and then just take off like they own the place. Very nice. Beautiful takeoff. Wonderful, good sir. Wonderful. Solid 10 out of 10. All right, let's go ahead and cut the cameras here, and let's wait for our next customer on this beautiful morning here at Lorville. All right, medium hangar is opening up here. We have, oops, hit the wrong button on my camera. Apologies there, folks. We do have a Valkyrie on deck. Gear is still, nope, it's coming up looking good. No VTOL usage though, unfortunately, but we did have proper gear usage there. That looked really, really nice. Would like to see the gear come up a little bit earlier. Oops, sorry. Occluding the camera there a little bit. Would like to see the gear come up a little bit sooner than that. But overall, solid takeoff, good rotation, and a good throttle out up to QT altitude. Yeah, folks, so we want to see proper VTOL utilization as well as a good point to bringing the gear up. I do like the way that gear was brought up, though. They were kind of like going up, an upward thrust pretty decently fast. So I won't fault them for having the gear slightly late there because it was all one smooth motion. It looked really, really nice, very cinematic. However, there was no VTOL usage there, so I will have to ding them a point for that, of course. So that's a good 9 out of 10. Could be a bit better. Could be improved for sure. All right, let's go ahead and butter this landing here, folks, and wait for the next customer, shall we? Very nice. I do love the ship. Very, very nice ship. And what have we got here? Small hangar. We have a Gladius coming in for landing. Is that a Valiant? No, that does not appear to be a Valiant. That is a bog standard Gladius. Coming in for landing, looking good, doing a nose-in approach. Gear is activated early here, folks. Remember, I'd like to see gear right before they touch down. So like right here would be a perfect time to pull the gear down. And nice touchdown, a little bit offset. You can see their cockpit is dead centered rather than the actual ship itself being dead centered there. So let's see, not too much hesitation. I think that was really nice. Early gear deployment, don't like to see that if I'm looking for cinematic landings here, and of course slightly offset while they landed. I think that's a solid 10, or I was gonna give them a 10. Sorry, excuse me, a solid 8 out of 10. Just those two elements are missing, so I'll take those 2 points away. Of course, I could take more if I wanted to, but overall that looked really, really solid. Again, folks, if you have different opinions, let me know in the comments below. Let's move on. All right, we have another Valkyrie, this time coming in for landing. I do not believe it is the same Valkyrie because this is a default skin Valkyrie. The other one was the Foundation Festival Valkyrie, and you can see the gear is activated and pulled down here very, very early before they hit the pad. You can see how goofy it looks, right? The ships just look so unrealistic when the gear is down and VTOL's not being used, right? There's a little bit of some keyboard catting here as well too, some very minor hesitation. I'd like to see that addressed as well too. They're opting for a nose-in approach. They have their limiter brought down, which is really nice. It gives them a lot more control. Let's see what they do as they come through the air shield here. They're dropping down, looking good. Now they looks like they are planning on their rotation here. Looking good, looking good. And let's see, are they going to touch down nice and centered? Looking solid, looking good. Let's see where they sit on the pad there, folks. And they bring it forward slightly. Oh, that looks good. That looks really, really good. Slightly askewed, but you know, I don't really, sweat those details too much as long as it's not super egregious. That looked really good. So what happened? We are missing VTOLs. We have early gear activation and a little bit of minor hesitation. I'd say that would be anywhere between an 8 or a 7, but the hesitation could definitely be ironed out more, so I'm going to subtract a point for that hesitation. Normally, like I said earlier, I was like, it doesn't really seem that big of a deal, but you could see how like they were kind of keyboard catting it into position, so it didn't look as good as it possibly could. It looked a little stuttery and it looked a little unrealistic. It almost makes the ship feel very floaty. Now, that's not entirely the player's fault. That's just what happens when you're using keyboard and mouse. Ooh, small hangar opening up here. So, that's on CIG to kind of address later in the future when they start to retune this. Looks like something's coming in for landing. So I'm going to give that Valkyrie a 7 out of 10 for their landing. Really good. I just would love that that hesitation addressed. Use VTOLs and proper gear usage before they touch down. Ugh. I cannot English today, folks. What is going on with me? All right. Either way, I may not be able to English, but hopefully this player will be able to English, I guess? I don't know what I'm talking about. Either way, let's go ahead and see where this player is coming from, and let's see how they land. I'm going to bring it down a little bit lower here, below all this dust and debris and smog. Give you a nice shot of Teasa Spaceport here. This is the entirety of Teasa Spaceport, of course. This is probably going to expand in the future when we get personal hangars. Not entirely certain if it will or not, but I mean, that's the expectation. We have tons of like dummy hangars here at Teasa Spaceport that are not used by players, so I'm hoping... Oh, here we go. What have we got here? We have an origin ship. We have a 100i. Gear is already down way ahead of time as they are making their approach to the pad. Judging by how slow this player is moving in, could be a brand new player. Remember, the 100i is a starter ship, right? Could be any reason. It could be a person just kind of, you know, moving about their business and using a starter ship to get around. I've done that before myself. Although the early gear being brought down and the massive amount of hesitation does lead me to believe that this is potentially a new player, or it could be a returning player. Either way, player is a little bit, seems to me, a bit of a novice with their flight. Let's see how they line themselves up, and let's see if my prediction here rings true. All right. Getting themselves lined up. Looks like they're going for a horizontal approach. They're not opting to do a nose-in approach. Let's see how this goes. Hesitation, possibly because they're using third person to kind of line themselves up here. Remember, folks, if you want to have that smoother landing, it's best, at least when you're first practicing and getting better, to try to avoid using third person, because third person can kind of warp your perception of depth, or just overall depth perception, if I get the words in the correct order there, right? Because we're all on flat panel monitors. We don't have VR in the game yet, unless you're using Vorpix, and I don't even think that's working yet. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if that's working. But anyway, I digress. If you're on a flat panel monitor in third person, the actual depth perception can be a little bit skewed, and it'd be kind of hard to figure out where you're coming and going, where things are at within the plane of existence of 3D space. So this is why I always recommend trying to do your landings in first person, even though it can be very frightening because you can't see as much as you'd like. It does give you more spatial awareness as you're coming in for landing, and kind of gives you a better understanding of where things are in relative to where your ship actually is in space, 3D space, right? And if you do it in third person, it can help you line things up and you can kind of move things around, but it does create that hesitation. And in comparison, look into this Nomad just screaming on in. Gears down earlier than I'd like, but you can see how controlled this Nomad is coming in for landing there. And you can see this actually is a miner here because it's got a rock in the back of that Nomad. I'm wondering if rock mining is actually fixed. I know rock mining has been broken before, and sometimes it gets fixed, and I guess it may be fixed now, or it's not broken anymore. We'll see. You can see the 100 now finally touches down. A lot of hesitation, early gear activation there, right? And nicely centered there. I'll give them a... Oh, that hesitation is going to cost them a lot of points in that 100. So I'll give them a solid 6 on that one. The hesitation is just, I have to keep, you know, subtracting points for the hesitation. That Nomad, though, very, very nice. Really just coming in, just screaming into their landing pad there, and then coming in and landing. The only thing I don't like about that Nomad, of course, was the gear being out just earlier than I would like. So I'll give them a solid 9 out of 10, because I liked the way they came in. I would just like that gear coming down as soon as they, you know, cross that air shield, and at least they're coming down and hitting the pad. A little bit more cinematic there would be nice. Also really cool seeing that Nomad with the rock, you know. Something you don't always see in the wild. It's something that I'm sure many of you have done before yourself. I know I have. I own a rock and a Nomad as well, and every so often I like to take it out. Sometimes I'll take even the DS. I know everybody laughs at the DS, but I do like the bigger cargo area, the bigger, you know, gem capacity the DS has. And sometimes I'll put it in my Star Runner and do some mining. At least as long as the rocks are not broken, CIG. Oh, we got a medium hangar opening up here. Either way, it's always nice to see a Nomad with a rock in the back. It's always cool to see a person in their pickup truck doing some honest hard work. And we have a Corsair on the deck ready for takeoff here with the Best in Show livery. And looks like they are lifted up off the pad. They're not fully taking off yet here. No VTOL activation, and you can tell because you can see those red rings on the back of those engines. Those are the VTOL engines. Those actually rotate downwards when you're in VTOL mode. Now, the gear is tucked underneath the center of the fuselage, so I can't quite tell if the gear is up or not. Let's see if we can get a better shot as they lift up. You can see the wings are now extending. You can see the gear is still down. The gear is now finally coming up. Very, very nice takeoff there. I would like to see that be smoothed out a little bit more, all in one smooth motion, no hesitation. They were kind of lifted up there, and they were kind of holding that pattern for a long time before they lifted up. So no VTOL activation, kind of holding on the pad for a little too long. And then their gear seemed to be slightly delayed. This person is really enjoying their Corsair right now. Slightly delayed, so I will give them a solid 7 out of 10. I think that was really, really good. Thank you for the show, by the way, good sir. Thank you for that barrel roll. Very nice. 7 out of 10. I think it could be improved a little bit more. There's a few steps there that could really be worked on to really, really make that takeoff shine and be a lot better. All right, let's go ahead and make our way back, and let's wait for our next customer. What have we got here? Something orange. Is it a brethren of mine? It is. It's a mole coming in here. The mole in 323 was broken due to a UI issue, and I think it might be addressed now in 323.1. I'm not entirely certain. I know recently me and my org, the Forgotten Heralds, we did a mining operation with just prospectors because we weren't entirely certain if the mole was busted yet or has been fixed. Let me know in the comments below if it actually is fixed. I do enjoy the mole, mostly in a team setting. I know some people do it solo. I personally hate flying the mole solo. I don't like the fact that multi-crew ships can be flied solo like that, so I do appreciate when CIG goes out of their way to kind of nerf bat that stuff. I think that is dumb. I hate when a solo multi-crew ship outperforms solo ships in general. It should be that a multi-crew ship should outperform when it has multiple crew. That's just how it... Oh, careful! Watch the backside! This person had their gear down a little bit too early there, luckily. And then they bonked the front of their ship onto the hangar as they come in. So they had their gear down early, which kind of gave them a nice pillowy smack on the rear there as they came into the hangar. And then they kind of nosed in a little bit too hard there and bumped their face onto the actual side of the hangar there. And we have a medium hangar opening up here as well. So no VTOL from that mole. Too early on the gear. Something's coming in for landing here. Too early on the gear, and as well as multiple impacts, rear and front impact there as they came in. So I'm going to have to take a lot of points away for that. So that is going to be a 4 out of 10. I mean, that would normally be like a 5, but those impacts, you guys know I always subtract a lot of points for impacts. Because, I mean, that's not very cinematic, right? When Han Solo takes off from Mos Eisley with his Millennium Falcon, he didn't start smacking into the sides of the hangars as he took off, right? So we want to make sure as we're taking off or landing, we want to avoid contact. Anyway, small hangar opening up here, and we have another brother of mine here, the Argo RAFT, another ship you don't see very often. Good VTOL usage there, although the gear is still down. There we go. Gear is now finally being pulled up, so late gear there. Do like using the VTOL there. I do like seeing the VTOLs being utilized there. Again, the RAFT being a very rare ship. Are those Gatlings on the top of that thing? Let me get a closer view on this puppy. Hello, bigger brother. It is I, the MPUV. What weapons do you have? Those are Gatlings. You put Gatlings on your turret, good sir. Very interesting choice of defensive weaponry. But yeah, so excellent VTOL usage, well controlled, although the gear was late. So overall, very, very, very good landing. You all know what the rating's going to be at that point. That's going to be a 9 out of 10, of course. Give them a 10 out of 10 because they're Argo. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, exactly. 9 out of 10. Very well mannered takeoff there. I would just like to see the gear come up a lot sooner than that. All right, let's go ahead and cut the cameras here and let's find our next customer, shall we? You know, I'm landing over here, just kind of checking out some debris on the ground, and we have another RAFT coming in. Don't know if it's the same RAFT, although this one is not using VTOL as they come in, and they have their gear down way too early there. Immediately, that's already 2 points taken off, but the hesitation not too bad. I'm going to go back to my ship. You can see I have the MPUV cargo, actually. I decided to take out here earlier. I was looking at this laser cannon over to the right. But anyway, yeah, 8 out of 10. All right, folks, this is Hybrid in Post. Remember earlier I talked about Forgotten Heralds doing a mining operation. This is a recording from that operation. This is fellow member of the Forgotten Heralds, Avonark, taking off in his prospector. You can see his gear is already up, VTOL is on, and away he goes out of the hangar, and then cycling his VTOL configuration for flight as he continues forward. Solid 10 out of 10 takeoff there from Avonark. Very nice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is going to be a good place to cap things off for today's video. If you did indeed enjoy it, please leave a like, as it really does help out the channel. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this and much more down the line, be sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And of course, if you want to support the show, you could always consider becoming a channel member like these really cool, awesome folks right here. They do help me put these videos together. But until next time, fly safe, because you never know who might be watching, and I'll see you all in the black.